call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. A declaration of pecuniary interest. You can declare anytime you see fit. Reports and presentations. If it's okay at the committee, I would like to put the motion on the floor first because it's sort of all involved in the same thing. So I would like to put the motion on the floor that Kickoff Architect Ontario Incorporated be awarded the contract to provide prime consulting services for Rockwood Terrace redevelopment for a total fixed fee of $2,504,530, excluding HST, to be taxed from the LTC redevelopment reserve. Someone to move, put on the floor, please. Moved by Mr. Warden, second by Councillor Robinson. So the motion's on the floor. So Madam CAO, I'm going to turn it over to you first, please.
Thank you, Chair Burley. So good morning, Redevelopment Task Force members. The report before you this morning is asking for your support to appoint the successful proponent from the request for proposal process that recently closed. It was Collier's project leaders, our project managers on our behalf, who issued the RFP to determine the preferred firm. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew Rodriguez from Collier's project leaders to take us through the process that was used to make this selection and recommendation for you this morning. Andrew?
Thank you very much, Kim, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm just sharing my screen right now. I have a presentation. Does everyone see what I'm sharing?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. So you'll notice a lot of slides are common slides that I would have presented during the last update in October, but the main focus today will be on the request for proposals for the prime consultant and the recommendation to proceed with the preferred proponent, which is Kickoff Architecture Ontario, which I'll refer to as Kickoff for the purpose of the presentation. So in terms of schedule, where we're at right now is we're nearing the conclusion of the initiation and planning phase. And we will then be kicking off with our first meeting with the prime consultant on November 15th, which is the kickoff meeting. At a high level, the dates you see over here have us working through design and going out to tender in the spring of 2023, with a target to have a shovel in the ground by summer 2023 and a first resident date in summer 2025. So approximately a 2-year construction timeframe for the project. The dates you see in here are contractual dates, are dates that the prime consultant have agreed to and that would be embedded in their contract. So are well aligned with the objectives of the project and the requirements to have the project delivered prior to 2025. I'll speak a little bit about the process that we had for the RFP. So what you see here is a snapshot of the evaluation criteria, the mandatory criteria, understanding of the project, corporate qualifications, proponents team, project delivery, and fee. And so just wanted to be clear with as an update to everyone today, the criteria and the weighting were clearly prescribed as part of the request for proposals and available to all of the proponents who had a chance to respond. We used the standard form of contract from the OAA, so the Ontario Association of Architects, with supplementary conditions that were reviewed and approved by members of Grey County, the legal team, as well as the insurance team. So this was done essentially to make it, to streamline the process after a recommendation and an approval is made to then execute the contract. Any of the items or particular questions would have been addressed through the addendum period. And for all purpose, that has already been settled through the procurement process. The evaluation was conducted by members from an evaluation committee, which comprised of members from Colliers as well as Grey County. And as a result of this process, the firm that scored the highest points, or the preferred proponent, was Kickoff Architecture Ontario. And so a few points I'd like to bring up just with regard to their proposal. They bring a wealth of experience in terms of research and best practices in the long-term care space. A background in operations. They have some resources named who come from an operations background in this space. So we thought that was certainly an asset to their proposal, as well as their experience with the long-term care design manual and bench strength in Ontario. So these are just some of the strengths that I wanted to highlight from their proposal. But overall, as a general comment, there were some questions in prior meetings about the interest this would draw and potential risks based on other ongoing projects within the province. And I am pleased to say that as a whole for this process, we had 5 submissions. So we had a good amount of interest and really what I would consider to be high quality submissions, high quality teams that were put forward and that the evaluation committee had the opportunity to interview. So certainly from a procurement perspective, was very pleased with the turnout and the quality of what we saw. In terms of where we go forward, there's a few meetings for review and approval that will be critical before the contract can be formally executed. That is the task force meeting today, as well as the meeting on November 12th. We are scheduled and lined up for a kickoff meeting on November 15th, and the preferred, all proponents were actually made aware of this date as part of the RFP, as we did not want to lose any ground following the November 12th meeting, and recognizing that scheduling and availability can at times be challenging. So we're all geared up towards hitting the ground running with the preferred proponent on November 15th. The last slide I have here is just to talk about what our next steps will be immediately after the kickoff meeting. So our first few weeks and really first 3 months will be focused on some of the visioning sessions, meetings with the end users, user groups, in order to be able to develop an alternate master plan and some conceptual floor plans, and most importantly, to come back with some Class D construction cost estimates to provide a further update to the task force. So based on the work plan right now, we are anticipating this would be sometime early mid-February where we'd have this information available and be able to come back with a subsequent update. So that will be the main focus of our first activities as we get started. That concludes the update and the presentation I have for today. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but before, perhaps I'll just pass over to Madam CEO Kim to see if there's any further thoughts or comments you'd like to add on the process.
Thank you, Andrew. Madam CEO, before I turn over to you, I would just like to say to the committee, I was very fortunate to be able to sit on that interview committee. And I must say that every member on the interview committee agreed with the end results. So it's just very important everybody knows that we all agreed, and it's amazing that we did what we did. Madam CEO, go ahead, please.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chair. And yes, so just for your information, the members on that interview committee, besides Chair Burley, Deputy CAO Randy, myself, Mary Lou Spicer, Anne Marie Shaw, and Jennifer Cornell. And I think we all took away different aspects of the presentations. They were all very well done. Really, we are so fortunate. But what we took away from Kaizen, I know from myself, they had some very interesting ideas about the environment and making sure that the atmosphere and the environment in the home, both from a health perspective, but also from a kind of bringing the outside in perspective, were very, very interesting and very innovative. And I wanted to ask Jen if she would speak to you just from the long-term care operations part of things. Jen?
Sure, thanks. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, it was so exciting to be part of those interviews, and I agree with all of the comments that have been mentioned. What really stood out for me in terms of their presentation and opportunity was their commitment to that people-centered approach to delivery of care. And their commitment to innovation and engagement, and we'll talk a little bit more. And it was in Andrew's final slide about visioning sessions and engagement with residents, team members, community members, and so that was really exciting. They also demonstrated a really clear understanding of our language for person-centered care, so the color it your way philosophy. That was really exciting. The experts that Andrew mentioned. Also just is really positive in us looking at an innovative way to ensure the resident experience is the best that it can be. And for example, Dr. Pat Armstrong, and she's a very well-known, very well-respected professor and sociologist that does a lot of work in leading practice in providing care for residents in long-term care. So I was really excited to hear what they have to offer.
Thanks, Jen. I don't know, Randy, Anne Marie, Mary Lou, did anybody else wanted to make any comments for the committee?
I just echo the comments that have been shared already. I think they had a really good understanding of some of the strategic initiatives that are underway at the county in terms of, as Jen indicated, the colorate and the lens that they applied to that as part of their submission. Just knowing that we're working on a climate change action plan, an age-friendly community strategy and action plan, and how some of those findings can be integrated as part of this overall design and build. And it's it was great to see, and I think they'll be a fantastic fit moving forward for us to work with, to have just an exceptional long-term care home for sure.
Thanks, Randy.
I also think it was very exciting, just the fact that we will have outside resources and outside support with not only the construction side of it, but as Kim mentioned, that the culture, that part that we want to develop, very much focused on not just the resident, but also visitors, their experience, and staff experience, which I found really exciting. So,
thank you.
I'd agree. As they went through the presentation, I could see that they were totally speaking to Jen. And so not just what we expect in a building and it being functional, but it being a place where people live. And, that's the most important piece here, right? That we come to like an office building, we go home at the end of the day, but this is people's homes. And I think they really got that part right.
Excellent. Okay. So thank you. That was from us. And we
Thank
hope that
you.
you will support the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam CEO. I must say, sitting in that committee, it was fantastic to be there and to be able to be right at the start to see this group. They're just amazing to listen to them talk and present their case like the other people did, but they just seem to shine, and it's good that we got such a great team. Does the committee have any questions? Mr. Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm reading the last sort of paragraph or last line, frankly, of Andrew's report. He writes that following the RFP evaluation, Casey and Architecture Ontario scored the highest combined technical and financial score. I'm wondering what went into the analysis of the financial score.
Yeah, sure, I can answer that question. So it's done based on a predefined formula that was made available to the proponents, where the proponent with the lowest fee would receive 20 points, and then fees are adjusted as a ratio or a fraction based on their fee versus the lowest fee. And so it's strictly a formula.
So when we see the criteria in that box, when you talk about a financial score, you're talking about number 5, I guess, 20%.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Does any other committee member have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And it's certainly encouraging to hear all the positive comments from our senior staff and from the chair and from Andrew in regards to the proposal. My question, I guess maybe it's to you, Jennifer, is the new design or standards, I guess, that the province is apparently coming out with. Do we know when that will happen, and how will we'll be able to work that into this new design? Where's the cutoff as we move down this road, with the design? If the province comes out with different standards, is there a way to kind of reboot what we're doing? I guess that's my question. I know they're coming out with standards, but I don't know when that's going to happen and how that, will interfere or, guide us as we move down this path.
Maybe it's better if Andrew takes this, Jen.
Yeah, no problem. I'm happy to answer that. So that's a great question. I believe the standards that you were referring to are the national standards that are being developed by health services and so organization. And so there's two key questions. One is when the timing will come out. I think the second and also fundamental question is, would the province of Ontario make those a requirement, and equally, if not more important, would the province fund them? So I think we have enough information that we could look to implement some features of those best practices right off the get-go. But the reality is, at this stage, these are not elements that would be funded by the province. And so there would definitely be a financial implication. So I see this as being part of, we will be having some discussions up front as part of the visioning sessions with the end user groups about where are some areas where Grey County may want to go over and beyond the design manual. And we're going to have to prioritize those and develop what we'd call a scope ladder. So an example, if an additional pot of money came available, what would be the next 2 or 3 features that you'd look to implement or integrate as part of the design? I think that's very much the approach that we'll have to take, just recognizing that what is in the design manual right now and what the ministry funds is potentially significantly lower than what we would see those standards recommend.
Thank you, Andrew. Scott, just if I may, one thing that really impressed me about this group was the connection they had with long-term care in the province. They seem to have a real good connection and seem to work with them all the time. And they made it very clear during their presentation. Any other questions from the committee? Go ahead, Brian Mellon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 things. One, I'm wondering, what was the cost range of bids? The lowest bid we know was 2.5. What was the highest bid? Where was the range there? And the other is, partly a comment. It is indeed very exciting to hear all the positive comments from the various members that were on the selection committee. It is very exciting to hear the company's, Casey's philosophy, I suppose, or buy into the philosophy, the understanding of our philosophy. That's very exciting. Did you also get as positive a feeling about their ability to actually deliver a building of that style or of that design? So those are my 2 questions. Thank you.
So I'll answer the one about the philosophy, and then perhaps what I'll do for the range of costs is I'll defer that one to Kim or a member from her group. So it's a great question, and I think that was clearly identified as part of the presentation, is that we will be going through the visioning sessions and learn about what are the best practices and best features that can be implemented. But the design team recognizes, as we do, that there are challenges in the funding formula right now, and there are tremendous market pressures. And so right off the get-go, there are going to have to be sessions, and they refer to it actually as a common ground session that would happen early on in their work plan to look at what features can be integrated in the project at this stage to avoid, I'll say, over-designing and coming to a point where expectations have to be managed because we went down a certain path that is disconnected from reality and what is affordable. So I think by ingraining that as part of their work plan, recognizing it's a challenge and really dealing with it early and upfront in the project will set the stage so that there's an understanding as to what is a desired end state, but also what is a reasonable end state based on the current funding and costs. So that approach was very clear, came across very clear in the presentation and was expressed in their proposal. So just a little bit more details about how that comes together with the feasibility element of the project.
Kim?
With regard to the pricing, the 3 firms that we interviewed were all within a range, I'm going to say 10% or thereabouts. This particular firm came in at the middle of the pack. And if you would like more details than that, I think we need to go into closed.
Brian, does that answer your question?
Well, I certainly wasn't looking to identify any companies. I was just wondering, for interest's sake, what was the range? So I'm hearing is that the next closest bid would be around 2.75, something like that. But anyway, that's fine. And I appreciated the other answer, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from, go ahead, Christine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very much appreciate the CAO's report as well as the presentation from the consultant. On the presentation deck slide, overall schedule, Rockwood Terrace, would there be an opportunity within the project phases to meet this consultant or at the county level? Or is there, I'll leave it at that. Is there an opportunity to meet them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there will be several opportunities. The county staff may even be, I hate to use the word sick, but there'll be tremendous amount of meetings just to go through the design process. There are going to be some public consultation meetings and meetings that have been scheduled with the residents, staff, and families. So that won't happen up front. That will happen closer to the schematic design phase of the project. So it will be a combination of virtual and mostly virtual, but some in-person meetings. And there will absolutely be the opportunity to meet the team. So that's easy for us to organize.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, it's great to be able to be this stage in our life. I'm going to ask the vote on the motion before us. I can see everybody, so maybe a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us. The motion is carried. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Andrew. Moving on the agenda, any other business? Kim? Anybody?
We don't have any.
Seeing none? Our next meeting will be determined. Have to call the chair. I guess we'll just leave it that way. So I guess maybe we just need one more motion to adjourn. Moved by Brian, or is your hand up for a question, Brian? No. Moved by Brian, second by Scott, that we would adjourn. All in favor? Thank you, everybody. Good meeting.
Thanks so much, everyone.
I know.
Appreciate your help.
Good day.